In physical education, most often the teachers are the center of the instructional process and make all the decisions about what occurs within the educational setting. If the teachers are the decision makers and are in charge of curricular decisions, what role do students have in the design and implementation of physical education programs? Should students be able to discuss and deliberate aspects of their learning in physical education with their teachers? Did you have any opportunity to voice your thoughts and feelings about which activities you would like to participate in, or select a game you wanted to play that was recreational or more competitive? Physical education research has made significant strides over the past 35 years. However, limited research has been conducted from the student's point of view. Research studies have included surveys that students completed to identify which activities they prefer, whether they like or dislike physical education, and if they would choose to take physical education if they were not mandated. Other studies were based on interviews with students to get a more in-depth understanding of how students think and feel in physical education. Although students liked the break from sitting at their desks and taking notes, the time to socialize and be with their friends, and opportunity to play games, many disliked or resisted physical education because of concerns associated with their skill ability, body and gender issues, social dynamics with their peers, and dislike of activities offered. It is important for physical education teachers to not overlook these issues that students encounter in physical education. Some of these concerns, such as gender and body issues, will specifically be addressed in the next section on differences and diversity in physical education. Whether students are highly skilled and excel in physical education, enjoy being physically active, or have negative feelings about physical education, most have more positive experiences in physical education when they have a sense of responsibility and ownership for their learning. Teachers can provide students with opportunities to be involved in the learning process by allowing them to have a voice, give them a choice, and provide them a sense of responsibility. Giving students a voice may involve letting them select the content for the period of time they have physical education, decide the rules and behaviors they are expected to follow and perform in class. They can design their own activities, select the warm-up activity, or create their own practice task within teams. Providing students with a choice may include permitting them to select their own roles and responsibilities within a sport education unit, decide which classmates they would like to have on their team, or elect whether they want to play in a recreational or competitive game. In giving students a voice and providing them with a choice, students or teachers are inevitably giving students an opportunity to demonstrate personal and social responsibility. For some teachers, it's not easy to let go of control by allowing students to take more ownership for their learning in physical education. These teachers may foresee management and behavioral issues if there is not a clear and specific order according to which the physical education program operates. Without question, chaos and disorganization may occur when students begin to take on more responsibilities, but similar to learning and developing new skills, it is up to the physical education teachers to provide these educational opportunities for students, with the hope that students will feel a sense of empowerment and ownership. As we begin to look at the differences and diversity, we would like to think back to your pre-K through 12 physical education experience. And at this point in the semester, you most likely have reflected on some of your experiences, which might have included what you enjoyed and did not enjoy, what you liked and didn't like, and what role your teachers played in these experiences. Once again, think back to those elementary, middle, and high school physical education classes and reflect upon these questions. Were athletes and higher skilled students given special privileges? Did students with disabilities participate with the rest of the class, or were they off to the side, away from all other students, regardless of the disability? Were girls and boys treated the same? Did teachers have high expectations of all students, regardless of race? It might take you time to reflect upon these questions, and quite honestly, you might not remember the nuances that occurred in your physical education classes. However, the content of these questions is rarely discussed in physical education, which we find to be concerning. As demonstrated in previous sections on curriculum, there is an abundance of physical education content that can be taught by teachers and a variety of ways teachers can deliver instruction to their students. The goals and objectives of each unit and lesson are usually stated by the teacher so students are explicitly aware of what they are learning. However, there are times students learn additional lessons based on indirect messages teachers deliver. These messages are examples of what physical education teachers refer to as the hidden curriculum, which is based on unintended and implicit messages that are implied by teachers and learned by students. For years, social issues such as gender, identity, sexuality, disability, race, and class have been vastly ignored by physical education teachers. Most often, the lessons learned by students from the hidden curriculum are more powerful than the content being taught in physical education classes. Few physical education teachers explicitly educate their students about these issues. Instead, there's dominance by white, male, heterosexual, high-skilled, thin, and athletic, able-bodied teachers and students in physical education and sport that continues to be the center of physical education curricula, which leave many students and teachers feeling isolated, oppressed, and marginalized. Physical educators have the potential to introduce students to and educate them about the ideas of privilege, oppression, and power relations. A positive first step to empowering all teachers and students would be to unveil the hidden curriculum. That is, to make the implicit messages explicit by including social issues, differences, and diversity in the physical education curriculum. In this section, the following social identities, how an individual associate or classify themselves relative to social categories, will be discussed. On seeing the word disability, many may be quick to assume that it refers only to individuals with special needs, such as people who are in wheelchairs or who are visually or hearing impaired. The reason DIS is in parentheses is because students' abilities, whether or not they are disabled, is observed, analyzed, and assessed by teachers and other students in the public arena of physical education. Gender had limited consideration in educational policies and school reform in the United States until the enactment of Title IX in 1972. Title IX is the only federal policy that addresses gender in physical education. Although physical education is not specifically mentioned within the law, requirements for physical education are provided in the Title IX regulations. Equal opportunities for boys and girls are established in activities, facilities, equipment, curriculum, testing and grading requirements, and behavior and dress codes. These changes meant a shift from same-sex to co-educational physical education classes was needed to ensure that males and females were provided comparable educational opportunities. For many teachers, this poses a challenge. A male teacher were used to teaching males, and female teachers were used to teaching girls. Physical education teachers were not provided pedagogical strategies to teach students across genders. They had limited knowledge of and experience with other genders, physical abilities, attitudes, and behaviors, or more importantly, with the skills, activities, knowledge that felt comfortable with the same-sex curriculum, or were challenged by change. Some teachers bypassed the law and still conducted same-sex classes, which continued to perpetuate the male and female ideologies. For example, teachers would offer football and dance, with male teachers teaching all the boys football, while female teachers would teach the girls dance. On the other hand, some teachers attempted co-educational classes, but the emphasis was placed on traditional male-dominated activities in sports. In physical education, students' bodies are exposed and placed on display due to the public nature of the environment. Students, particularly girls, are concerned about other students observing their bodies in motion and feeling as if their bodies were objectified. During adolescent years, when students' bodies are developing and changing, this public exposure creates a great challenge for students, which often supersedes their ability to focus on learning the physical education content. In today's society, when bodies are socially constructed and gender roles and expectations are formulated, students tend to compare their own bodies with those of their classmates. The socially constructed gendered ideal bodies are based on body size, shape, and appearance. Specifically, males are to be muscular and athletic, and females slender, skillless, and non-muscular. The physical education context and the design of the physical education program influences students' feelings about their bodies, particularly in co-educational classes where the dominant male culture is promoted. As our countries' obesity rates continue to rise and physical activity decrease, it is imperative that physical educators teach students at all grade levels about body issues. In an educational institution, including physical education that perpetuates the hidden curriculum, is up to the physical education teachers to break the silence and bring these important yet uncomfortable and vulnerable issues to the forefront of physical education curricula. The hope for physical education teachers is to give students a voice and create a physical education context that challenges dominant body ideals. Along with disability, gender, and body issues are also differences that teachers need to educate students about in physical education. Students get assigned certain positions in sport based on their race. For example, white students tend to play positions that are considered more intellectual, such as quarterback or pitcher, whereas black students play running back, wide receiver, or forward. Teachers are predominantly white, yet the racial diversity of our country continues to increase, causing a gap across racial groups. To navigate the superfluity of racial identities, teachers need to reflect upon their own identities and biases to have a better understanding of the students they teach. Socioeconomic status or class has an impact on physical education programs. In economically disadvantaged communities, particularly in urban settings, many physical education teachers are limited in regard to facilities, equipment, and space. Within these same communities, students may not have the appropriate attire to participate in physical education. This is considered a major problem for physical education teachers who continue to grade students on dress and participation. If students do not have the appropriate clothes, they usually sit in the bleachers, waiting out the time on the sidelines or talking to classmates. Because obesity is especially prevalent in individuals with lower socioeconomic status and urban communities have less physical activity opportunities for youth, it is extremely important that students participate in physical education regardless of whether they have the appropriate clothes, unless it is a safety concern. To minimize the clothing issue, teachers can take clothing donations from others to provide students when they do not have a change of clothes for physical education. Socioeconomic status also influences the out-of-school experience that students have in sport and physical activity. Students who are from higher socioeconomic communities participate on traveling sport teams, attend specialized camps, and tend to have an ample equipment at home to practice skills taught in physical education. On the contrary, students from lower economic communities cannot afford to play on traveling teams or go to camps and tend to live in neighborhoods that either are unsafe or do not have sidewalks or parks to engage in physical activity. Sexuality closely intersects with gender. In the discussion on gender, we briefly mentioned gender stereotypes that are socially constructed. An example of a stereotype is that girls are associated with the color pink, whereas boys are aligned with the color blue. In your everyday conversations with friends and families, what is said if a boy wears pink? What if girls want to play football or wrestle, or boys want to dance or be cheerleaders? Stereotypes are formulated because our society influences our knowledge and understanding of what is, yet few individuals ever question why. When answering these questions, many students most likely labeled these boys or girls as gay. Because society says that boys are supposed to play football and wrestle, and girls are supposed to dance and cheerlead. If individuals break the dominant belief, that is, what is considered to be normal, then their sexuality is immediately questioned. According to society, girls can be skillful in female sports such as soccer and volleyball, and as long as they look feminine. Boys' sexuality is also questioned if they are uninterested in sport or do not have large, ripped muscles, regardless of their actual sexual orientation. How do students, especially at the secondary school level, navigate these socially constructed gender and sexuality stereotypes in physical education? If teachers allow students to choose between football and fitness, who tends to select football and who tends to select fitness? Do boys who would prefer to participate in fitness and girls who would like to play football break those gender barriers and select the activity of their interest? Or is the social pressure too much or too great of a risk to challenge those norms? Physical education teachers need to be aware of gender and sexuality stereotypes and expectations and be cognizant of the language they use and the implicit messages that they send to students as well. All of those social identities, along with ethnicity, religion, and language proficiency, are difficult to discuss in isolation. Rather, identities tend to intersect with one another, as demonstrated in the discussion of sexuality. It is imperative that physical education teachers, along with exercise scientists and sport leaders, have an awareness of the students, clients, and athletes. To gain this awareness, it is important for professionals to learn how their students, clients, and athletes identify where they come from and who they are. Before doing this, however, it is important for all professionals to reflect upon their own identities and assess their biases and stereotypes about individuals with differences from themselves. We must minimize the unintended implicit messages we deliver to students and unveil the hidden curriculum by discussing and addressing differences and diversity in physical education. As Timken and Watson emphatically state, as teachers, we need to be aware and move beyond socially constructed and individual bias, beyond our preconceived expectations of students and their potential in order to teach all kids. In physical education, the goals and objectives of each unit and lesson are usually stated by the teacher, so students are explicitly aware of what they are learning. However, there are times students learn additional lessons on indirect messages teachers deliver through the hidden curriculum. For years, social issues of gender, sexuality, and disability, race have been vastly ignored by physical education teachers. Most often, the lessons learned by students from the hidden curriculum are more powerful than the content being taught in physical education classes. Physical educators have the potential to introduce students to and educate them about the ideas of privilege, oppression, and power relations. A positive first step to empowering all teachers and students would be to unveil the hidden curriculum. That is to make the implicit messages explicit by including social issues of differences and diversity in the physical education curriculum. Thank you for allowing me to go through that. This is an addition to Chapter 10, and it's the final portion of Chapter 10. Thank you. I look forward to talking to you next week, and we'll be talking about your philosophy of what physical education, sport, fitness, all of that is. All right. I look forward to talking to you then. Have a good day.